So, how did you handle it? What was her reasoning for still wanting you despite your being married? Story 1. Two separate situations. Freshman year in college. A girl who was also a freshman was in a long-distance relationship with a boyfriend from high school who was still living in their hometown. Not proud of it, but I had a fling with her the entire freshman year. 18 years old, young and inexperienced. The second situation was more recent. I am 34, married with children now. A woman from the gym added me on Instagram and started liking my photos. I did not think much of it because she was also married with children. Eventually, she suggested an affair in my direct messages. I shut that down immediately and blocked her profile. I saw her at the gym, and she asked why we could not still be friends without the affair. I told her that out of respect for my wife and children, that was a terrible idea and that there should be no communication between us ever again, in person or on social media. I rarely see her at the gym at the same time as me now, and if I do, we make sure to avoid each other. Story 2. I definitely encountered women who did not care that I was married if they wanted to have sex. A few actually preferred the illicit thrill of facilitating a man's cheating. The temptation is real, especially if you are having a bad time in your marriage and particularly if you are in a dead bedroom situation. But in the end, I am just not a cheater. As much as I might have enjoyed it, I was able to see beyond that to the next day, weeks, and the rest of our lives, knowing I might have to carry that secret or come clean. There was no way that was worth it. Story 3. Yes, quite a few times over the last 35 years being married to my wife. How did I handle it? In my younger days, I ignored it and told my wife. When it kept happening later in life, I told them to stop, moved them to a different area, and told my wife. When I was young and new in my career, it was always older women, usually married, in the office trying to get with the new kid. They probably thought I wouldn't tell and were just wanting a good time. Later, as a manager in an office, it was always younger single women or the same older married women. The younger ones, I think, saw the power dynamic. The ones my age were just looking to fool around. The younger ones wanted to get with me and likely thought they could break my marriage. Why didn't I? I love my wife and my life. I detest drama of any kind. My wife was a former Miss America and decided she loved someone like me. I am sure not going to blow that. I've seen enough of cheating to know that's the most evil thing you can do to a person, short of ending their life. Story 4. Yes. My daughter's friend's mother texted me to hang out while her husband was deployed. I was kind of shocked and grossed out. I considered telling him but didn't. I thought he would respect me if I told him, but he is also an Army Ranger who could probably harm me if he wanted. I decided to let it slide, and it never happened again after I told her I would never do that to her husband. The husband was not a great friend, but men have to be good to men. Story 5. Yes. It was with a coworker. She worked in a different department, but our paths crossed quite a bit. She was married to an older man. She was probably 35 to 40, and he was probably mid to late 60s. He had a daughter that was my age, mid-20s, so my coworker was trying to set us up on a date. I went on the date, which was to a hockey game with the whole family. My coworker, her husband, and his daughter. Awkward, but whatever. After the game, we all went out. The daughter and father left early because they had to work the next morning. I stayed out with my coworker. Now that those logistics are done, here is what happened next. We were relatively sober. I think we had each only had one beer and were starting our second at the bar. My coworker got really close to me and said she was glad her stepdaughter seemed to warm up to me and hoped that meant I would be around more often because she really wanted to be intimate with me. I immediately drew back. She's married. She then said we should go back to the car and do the deed. I laughed, but she was dead serious. I reminded her that she was married, to which she just rolled her eyes and said he would never know. I couldn't move. I was in shock. That's when she crossed another line. She rubbed my thigh and made it obvious where she wanted her hand. I grabbed her hand, put it back on the table, and said that while I found her attractive, this wasn't something I wanted given that she was married. She was actually really cool about it. She apologized many times, was embarrassed, and said she should probably go home. A few weeks later, we saw each other at a meeting, and she mouthed the words, "I'm so sorry." After the meeting, I told her it was all good, water under the bridge. She said she was very unhappy with her marriage and our time together gave her the courage to get a divorce. She did. Most of you might expect that we hooked up after that, but we didn't. She even joked about it, saying that she ruined any chance of hooking up with me because of her inappropriate behavior. I thought, wait, we're both single now. Story 6. Several times, actually. I normally just smile and nod, but do not move the conversation in that direction since I love my wife and she does not deserve that. I have had women tell me straight out that their husband would never know. Pretty direct, but I have found that a firm no thanks works. Some of these women are her friends. No, I have never told her. Story 7. I told her I was busy that weekend. Let's say she was not attracted to her husband. I immediately told the wife what happened. Story 8. All the time, yes. I thank them and move on. I will never cheat on anyone again. I did when I was in my 20s and it is just not worth it. Story 9. Yes, and you just shut it down. It's pretty easy. It has only happened when in uniform, and the type of women who chase a badge, regardless of who it is pinned on, are the type most likely to cause you to lose it. I love my wife and would never risk blowing up my family for a stranger. Story 10. Of course, women love pursuing men who are already in relationships. 80% of divorced women are dating married men. Story 11. Yeah, mostly tourists for some reason. I reject them. I like when women show interest in me, but if they do so knowing I am in a relationship or do not accept my rejection well, it becomes annoying. Story 12. Yes. Not long ago, I could literally see her excitement. No, nothing physical sticking out, just her attitude towards me. When I told her I was single, I could literally see her excitement deflate, like someone taking air out of a balloon. Story 13. A few times I generally found it annoying. Years ago, I was at a bar with my group of friends. We were sharing a few rounds with 5 people we had met that evening. I talked about my girlfriend at the time. One of the shorter women still tried her luck and asked if she could sleep with me that night. I declined and got up to use the restroom, only to have this little drunk woman jump on my back and start dry humping me. Story 14. She did not overtly say that was what she was trying to do, but she was not exactly subtle about it either. It was an old friend that I tried to date a long time ago. She passed on dating me because she wanted someone who was like me but not me. We remained friends for a while. This friend called me out of the blue last year because she saw that I got married. She said she wanted to congratulate me. Most of the conversation was her complaining about her love life. Apparently, she never found someone like me and said she wished she had given me more of a chance. She said she really enjoyed a night where we slept together. I corrected her because we never slept together. She said, well, maybe we should have. She also tried to convince me I did not love my wife because I said something about my wife not being perfect. I mostly ignored the advances and kept the conversation focused on her trying to better her situation in a way that did not involve me. Story 15. Of course, mostly women in relationships with friends or family. It is just unbelievable. No morals at all. Story 16. Yes. She was attracted to me before I was taken and continued to pursue me even after knowing I was in a relationship. I simply ignored her advances. Story 17. Yes, absolutely. I turn them down every time. Usually, this happens when there is an argument that becomes known to the larger group. The reason is typically that the person viewed me as being kind and patient with my then partner when I could have chosen otherwise. Lots of, I wish my partner would treat me like that, instead of understanding that this guy is a person and not a fictional character. I also have an unfortunate pattern of dating friends who immediately pressure me when my breakup is made known. Story 18. Yes. I was very intoxicated at the time, and she knew it too, so she just hung out in my neighborhood driving her car. Sure enough, I got into the fight of all fights with my girlfriend and called her the other girl. She was at my house in 2 minutes, but I didn't care. We ended up going to a bar somewhere and drank and danced more. We made out in the back alley. We didn't have sex, but I knew we did some things. I'm pretty sure she wasn't drunk. That was a crazy night and was the first sign I knew I had a drinking problem. Story 19. Yes, at work last year, she was a temporary placement at my branch for about 3 months. The things she said and did to me were inappropriate. If I had done the same to her, I would have been let go for sexual harassment. She hugged me without any consent, randomly complimented my looks, said, "I need a hug from a man right now," anytime I was around her, and playfully put her face very close to mine, which felt like she was going to kiss me, so I backed off. During my lunch break, she stormed into the staff room with security tags on her clothes and said, "Like what you see?" On her last day, she said to me, "I keep quiet about it, but I'm actually a very sexual woman," as she passed by. She also asked playfully if I had a crush on her. She did all this while she was engaged to a man who picked her up after work every day to make sure she got home safely. I didn't pursue or respond because she was taken, and it was not fair to her fiancé. Also, it was unprofessional at work. She also tried to start conversations with me on WhatsApp, using flirty emojis and texts after she left the branch where I work, but I only gave one-word answers and did not flirt back because she was taken. If she had been single, honestly, I might have been open to dating her, but she was not, and that put me off. Story 20. A friend's wife acted very friendly when I was around, to the point where I couldn't tell if she was just being friendly or something else. So I stopped interacting with her one-on-one. My friend saw her a few months later after a gathering with a man we both knew at their Friendsgiving. I do not know what her intentions were. Story 21. A new colleague at work showed interest in me from the very beginning. She mentioned she was married, so I thought she was off limits. However, she was quite persistent. I resisted for a year and a half before finally agreeing to spend time with her privately. By that point, the experience was more intense than anticipated. She couldn't go home that night. The next day, when I asked if there was any issue, she said her husband was okay with it, so I continued the relationship for the next 2 years. At one point, I even had the unusual experience of shaking hands with her husband, which still makes me uncomfortable. Story 22. A wedding ring, for some reason, is a powerful aphrodisiac for other women. People tend to blame married men for cheating, but the wedding ring effect is real. Story 23. Happens a lot more often than people realize. The last time was when a colleague relentlessly pursued me for about a year until I threatened to report her to Human Resources for harassment. Story 24. Yes. First point, if it is happening a lot, you either look too good, so tone it down, or you are not making it clear enough that you are taken. So talk about your wife. I definitely do not look too good or even have an effect on most women. It is just the ones who know me that get interested in spending time. Second point, it is super easy to discourage the ones who ignore the signs above by withdrawing from them socially. You do not have to make a big deal out of it, you just do not have time to chat like you used to. You can still be friendly. They usually move on without incident. Lastly, if she persists through the second wave of defense, she is going to make it very clear that she knows you are married and she just wants to have a relationship. That can be awkward and require an outright rejection. I do not think my wife would appreciate any of this. I am sorry if I led you on in any way, but this is just inappropriate. Story 25. Several times, I received more attention from other women when I was married and wearing a wedding ring than I did after I got divorced. I always turned them down. Story 26. I had a platonic relationship with a married woman while my marriage was rocky. She was part of our friend group and hinted that she would be available to me. I did not take her up on it since she was married. We both divorced soon after, but I moved across the country before we could be together. Sometimes I wonder if I made a big mistake by not accepting her advances. Honestly, she was very attractive. Story 27. Yes, I was between 19 and 21 years old, and she was at least in her mid-30s. She was very bold and aggressive with her flirtations, even inviting me to go on a wine date. Honestly, I had just grown into my looks. During most of my school years, I was the unattractive kid girls were dared to talk to, so I wasn't used to the attention. I didn't know how to react. My co-workers made fun of me relentlessly. Story 28. Not that I noticed, but my girlfriend has said, "That woman was totally trying to deceive you." About 3 people during our 23 years together. It's not something she says often, so maybe there was something about our interactions that I was missing. No woman, aside from Drew Barrymore, could get me to be unfaithful though. Story 29. Not when taken, but it happened frequently when single and working at a golf club. Many married women craved attention they did not receive from their golf-obsessed husbands. Story 30. Yes. It was a girl I had a crush on in high school. I ended up having a physical relationship with her. Completely wrecked a good relationship. It absolutely wasn't worth it. Story 31. Yes. I politely declined. I did not ask for her rationale. Another time, I politely declined, and she was embarrassed and said she did not know. I laughed and said no worries, I was flattered. Story 32. The only times I have ever been approached by interested women were when I was already involved with someone. Story 33. Twice in the last 2 weeks. It actually happens a lot. It is against my moral code to sleep with a girl who has a boyfriend. In the last 6 months, it has happened over 10 times. The ironic thing is, in the same amount of time, I have only experienced it with one girl who was single. I am kind of disgusted by how often it happens, to be honest. Story 34. Yes. It was part of a cheating test. I passed, but I feel disappointed that my girlfriend at the time would test me. Story 35. Yes, when I started dating my current wife, multiple women I knew tried to make moves, including some I had slept with and others I considered just friends. It was strange. Story 36. Yeah. How did I handle it? Awkward chuckle, and then I told my wife, who was my girlfriend then. What was her reasoning? Well, she did not really offer an explanation with supporting points. She just told me I could stay over at her place if I ever wanted. But if I had to guess, I would say the reasoning is that she was very eager and wanted attention. Story 37. Yes. A woman I used to work with years ago really turned the screws on suddenly. We worked together for about 1.5 years and started hanging out on breaks and lunch. Nothing crazy, just smoking outside and chatting. One day we smoked in her car because it was cold, and she made a soft pass at me, which I casually brushed off. A week later, during a team meeting, she straight up pressed against me as if I were an upright cushion and ground her backside into me like we were at a club. Obviously, I, trying not to attract attention, slid off a bit and made it clear that was a no-go. She never made any more passes at me, but she was clearly trying to make me jealous because when she hooked up with a guy a week later, she was very clear about how good the sex was. We had never had those kinds of conversations before, so it was obviously a ruse that I did not react to. She knew I was married the whole time we hung out because I always brought up family plans, which included my wife. Story 38. When I am in a serious relationship, I generally do not put myself in situations where it is even possible to be unfaithful. I have had women approach me at bars and get handsy right in front of my wife. Decades ago, when I was young, I worked as a landscaper. It was not uncommon for stay-at-home wives, who were generally twice my age at the time or close to it, to make it clear they were available. Fortunately, 18-year-old me was not interested in women in their late 30s and early 40s, so it did not require much willpower to ignore it. However, I never forgot how many fairly clear offers I received from random wives who were very well provided for, most of whom I had never seen before and would never see again. Story 39. Yes, multiple times at a previous job. I was one of the first people hired after it was acquired by a larger company. Most of the original staff were retained. The original staff were all close to retirement. I was not the youngest person in the office, but I was in the younger group of new hires. The youngest person in the original group was at least 15 years older than me. My coworkers in the younger group were awkward and did not put effort into grooming themselves, or both. I stood out because I dressed well and could occasionally pretend not to be awkward. There were a handful of women in their late 40s and early 50s who would go out of their way to flirt with me despite knowing I was already in a relationship. Some were divorced and some were married. Story 40. Wearing a wedding ring activates a whole category of women you did not know existed. It is like catnip. If I were ever single again, God forbid, I would still wear my ring everywhere just to take advantage of the women who thrive on stealing men who are in relationships. Story 41. Yes, several times. The most notable one happened when the girl who cheated on me, and with whom I am compelled to remain friendly due to our mutual friends, began to relentlessly pursue me after she met someone I was seeing who was essentially an upgrade in every aspect. Story 42. Yes. When I was single and using apps, I would swipe right on women who were polyamorous in open relationships or practicing ethical non-monogamy because they were easy. Story 43. Yes. I am 27 now. When I was 21, my relationship was going through a very difficult time. My ex told me that she did not feel as attracted to me sexually because I had gained weight while bulking for the gym. She also felt that I was not trying to overcome my depression. Things were tough for me. My best friend at the time provided comfort and assurance that things would get better. One night, we were out drinking and one thing led to another and we ended up kissing. Realizing what I had done, I went into a spiral and cried because I had cheated. I ended up breaking up that night because I was unhappy in the relationship, and on top of that, I had been unfaithful. Story 44. Not married, but when I was in a long-term relationship, it was in another country, so she could not cause much drama in my private life. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.